After we have checked the data types and variables in Java, let us now check out the type conversions. Now what are type conversions? These are basically of the type of explicit and implicit conversions. So one by one, let us check it out. So here let us consider a double variable. Now suppose we have one more integer variable. According to the size of these two variables, the double due to its size can easily accommodate the integer variable inside it. So this type of conversion, that is converting the smaller data type into the larger data type, is known as the implicit conversion. Because the compiler never complains when we have such type of conversion. But now, suppose we have a smaller integer data type and we have the double variable. Now as per the size, when we try to accommodate the double into the int, then the compiler simply complains that hey, you cannot do it easily. Because the integer is of smaller size compared to the double. So how can it easily accommodate the double into it? So for that we have to explicitly tell the compiler that I am going to do such conversion, be ready to accept it. But in case of explicit conversion, what happens is that when we try to accommodate double into the int, then we lose some data due to its size because the double is of greater size. So when we try to accommodate double into the int, so we definitely lose some data. Let's check it out inside the IntelliJ IDE. So here inside the IntelliJ IDE, let us first check out the implicit conversion. So for that, suppose I have int radius equal to, let us assume, 400 units. And then suppose I have double new radius equal to again 400. Now here, since I'm using 400, which is equal to the value that I have assigned here, so instead of using the 400, why don't we assign radius here? In the runtime, what compiler will do, it will simply assign the value of radius, that is 400, into the variable of new radius. So the new radius variable will now bear the value of 400. Now if I try to print out the value of new radius, then let's see what we actually get. If you notice in the output console, we have 400.0. Now on the right hand side, I am having the integer value of radius, and on the left hand side I am having a double variable. So in the runtime, what happens is that this 400 gets converted into the double. Now the double contains the floating point value, that is the decimal number. So the 400 gets converted into 400.0, which is in the form of decimal. So this is known as the implicit conversion. Now let us take another example. Now this time let us use double space diameter equal to 3.78, and then let us use int new diameter equal to, let's say, diameter. Now the value of diameter is actually 3.78. So as per the rule, we cannot store the 3.78, that is the decimal number, into the integer variable. So for that, in Java, we need to tell the compiler that we are going to convert this value into the integer value. Now instead of 3.78, let us again write diameter, and let us explicitly tell the compiler to convert it into the int value. And now, so in the runtime, this diameter will be converted into the integer and then will be stored into this variable of new diameter. Now, if I try to print out, let's say, new diameter, and let us run the code. So here you can notice we have 3 in the output. Now this 403 is getting appended, so let us use here print line method. Let us now run the code again so as to get the cleaner output. And there we go, we got 3 as a new diameter. Now originally our diameter was 3.78. So as soon as we convert the diameter into the integer value, so we have just lost 0.78. That is, whatever value that we have after the decimal point, we are simply losing it. So that is why we get 3 here. So always remember, in case of explicit conversion, you may lose some value. Now let us take some other example. Instead of double, let us use long. So long diameter, let us use a very long integer value, let's say 7878 and so on. So here I have a 10-digit number. And if you hover over it, the compiler is not happy that it is not an integer number because it is too large. So here you have to tell the compiler that this number is basically of the type of long. So at the end, let us use capital L. So always remember, for the long we have to use capital L at the end, similar to float where we used capital F or small f at the end. And now here if I use diameter and cast it to the integer and print out the value of new diameter here, let us see what is the output. And there we go, we have some weird output. Just because we are losing some value while we are explicitly converting the diameter into the integer value. And now in case of implicit conversion, instead of double, let us use long. And try to run the code. So here in the output we have 400. It has made no difference in the output just because on the right hand side I have 400, which is basically the integer value. So in the runtime this integer is getting converted into the long. So we got no difference in the output because both long and int does not contain any decimal point value. So this was all about the implicit and explicit conversion for the primitive data type.